Hi guys. So nice to get to talk to you all. Sorry I haven't been there this week. I'll be in later this week. Fingers crossed. But let's go ahead and get into it. I hope you guys are doing well. Let's recap chapter 8 real quick. So obviously this can be like a Q&A thing, so I'll go ahead and just summarize it for you. So chapter 8 takes place just a few days after the Moscow trials, right? Or the metaphorical imitation Moscow trials. So remember that term, Moscow trials? If you don't know, look back in your notes. Anyway, so a few days later, the animals are reading the commandments, and the commandment has now been changed to no animal shall kill another animal without cause. So they changed the sixth commandment, and first period, you did see me change the commandment, and there's a reason why I did let you see me, and you've probably already figured it out by now, but if not, then I'll explain. Alright, so it goes on. We have lots of things happening, right? So there's Squealer, and he's like, oh, rations and food production is up by like 400%, but yet the animals are on the brink of starvation. But none of them really say much because at this point, it may not seem like it to us, but it's been years since the animals took over Mr. Jones's farm. So a lot of the animals can't even remember what things were like in Mr. Jones's day. So they just kind of start accepting things as facts that the pigs give them. So there's that, and then there is a pile of timber on the property that's been there for years, and of course Napoleon, being Napoleon, he negotiates between either selling it to Mr. Frederick or Mr. Pilkington. Remember those two farmers that we've been introduced to a few chapters ago? So he's debating on whether to sell it to them or to Mr. Frederick or to Mr. Pilkington. Whenever he's on a good foot with Mr. Pilkington, suddenly it's rumored that Snowball is hiding out on his farm and vice versa, right? And whenever he's on good terms with Pilkington, he even changes it to, like, the slogan to death to Frederick, right? So he's hopping around all over the place. He has no loyalty whatsoever. But eventually, he ends up selling the timber to Mr. Frederick, and because all the animals call him clever for this, but instead of accepting a check, he accepts cash, so banknotes. And later on, turns out those banknotes were forgeries, right? So, of course, Napoleon, all the animals are, outraged and everything. And he says that this means that Frederick is probably about to attack the farm, and he does. Frederick and his men, they go for the windmill. They go right for the jugular. They blow it up with dynamite. And, of course, all the animals are so enraged that they just attack. And they were able to drive Mr. Frederick and his men off the farm. So it was a success, but lots of animals died, and Boxer, he did not die, but he was wounded a lot. But of course, they still won, so they still sung songs and hoisted the flag in celebration and all of that. And of course, Napoleon, he's already got his animal hero first class at this point. He's given himself all kinds of titles, remember that? Okay, so Minimus the poet, he's making all kinds of poems and songs about how great Napoleon is. So that happens, and then something else happens. Another commandment gets changed, and we find out it gets changed because the pigs dug into some whiskey that Mr. Jones had in his basement, and they drink it, of course. And the next day, they're sick, and it's rumored that Napoleon is dying because, remember, these animals, they don't know much about the effects of alcohol, so they think they're dying, but then by the evening, they're fine, and then they get into the whiskey again, and then there's a sound heard in the barn, and the animals come rushing in, and they catch Squealer, who is kind of like, if you hadn't caught on to it, he was drunk in that scene. That's why he crashed over the ladder with the paint and stuff. He had been in the whiskey. And they caught him changing the commandment to no animal shall drink alcohol to excess. So that's why I let you guys see me do it this time, because Squealer gets caught. So those are the major events that I can remember that happened in chapter 8. You guys are pretty good about reminding me of things that even I forget, but I did refresh myself. That's what happened in chapter 8. For chapter 9, these are the questions I want you guys to think about. So question number 1. What does Boxer symbolize? These are questions for chapter 9, not chapter 8. Questions for chapter 9. What does Boxer symbolize? And let me explain a little bit. Remember, Boxer is the horse who is not very bright, but he's strong, he's muscular, he's a really hard worker. So relate that to the Russian Revolution and who are the ideal people in Russian society besides the upper class, besides the bourgeoisie. I'm sick a little bit. Okay. Anyways, what did the upper class want to see out of the lower class? So what does Boxer symbolize? So be thinking about that. Next, in chapter 9, again, this has not happened yet, but Animal Farm becomes a republic. And so my question for you is, do you think anything will change in chapter 10 since Animal Farm is a republic, has been announced as a republic? And then lastly, why do you think, remember, the Animal Farm Revolution, in this book, it's years and years ago. I mean, not decades and decades, but it's years ago. So it seems recent to us, like these are just happening like week after week, but it's not. It's happening over a span of several years. So be thinking about that when I ask you this question. Why do you think they still use Snowball as a scapegoat? Why do you think they do that? And the second part of the question is, do you think that will expire? And what I mean by that is, like, does that have a time limit, or do you think Snowball will always be the boogeyman? You know? So I want to hear your thoughts on if they'll find a new scapegoat to replace Snowball. You know, just be thinking about those things. So, you know, does that expire? Is there a time where it was so long ago that they can no longer blame Snowball? So those are the questions I want you guys to be thinking about. And then there's our Chapter 8 summary. We're going to finish Animal Farm this week. And then next week we will start a final assessment of Animal Farm. You'll love it. You'll love it. Like you always do. You love it. Anyways, so we're going to be doing that. And I think that's it. Hopefully I see you guys next week. And have a good rest of your day. And I'll be back as soon as I can. Bye, guys.